You saw the title. First up is Dylan Budka versus Cesar Almeida, and both of these guys are making their debut in the UFC, so you never know how these kind of fights are going to go. It's basically up to your judgment, you're guessing, so I'm just going to go with the odds, say Dylan Budka, but if you bet, probably not the safest to do this one. Next up, we have Dan Argueta versus Gene Matsumoto, and Dan Argueta was the one that was fighting Ronnie Lawrence, and Keith Peterson made Ronnie Lawrence tap because he clearly had money on Argueta by first round submission, so he made it happen. All jokes aside, though, I can't actually go back and watch what Matsumoto looks like because the UFC app doesn't work and it doesn't show up on the ESPN app at all. So because I know how Argueta is coming and the fact that a referee has money on him, I'm definitely choosing him to win. I'll say second round submission. Next up is Pedro Flacco versus Victor Hugo, and I have not seen Victor Hugo fight actually because once again, I don't remember his Dana White Contender Series fight, nor can you watch it. Yes, I know I said Flacco instead of Falcao, but you can go and watch Pedro Falcao fight. He seems well-rounded. He's definitely more of a grappler than anything, and Victor Hugo's win on the Dana White Contender Series is by knee bar, so that's telling me he has good submission. So I see why this is a pick'em fight. I'm gonna keep it simple. I like wrestling a little bit less than jiu-jitsu, but wrestling is very important. So I'm going to go with Pedro Falcao by decision. Next up at welterweight is Court McGee versus Alex Morono, and I agree with those odds down there actually. Alex Morono should win this, and it should be by a third round KO. Next up is Charlie Campbell versus Trevor Peek, and I know I reversed the names. Be quiet. I do agree with the odds down there, just a little bit. I do think this is going to be a crazy fight for as long as it lasts, and I truly think Charlie Campbell is going to win their crazy exchanges simply because he throws straighter. This is going to be one of those fights where you see that straight punches beats looping punches, and Charlie Campbell simply throws jabs in these crazy exchanges. And at a distance, he has crazy combinations, and he has to take down defense, at least from what I've seen, and the ground game as well. If you are able to get him to the ground to compete with Trevor Peek, I think he has this, probably by second round KO. Every card has its sacrifice, and Walter Walker versus Lucas Brzezinski, or however you say that name. And yeah, this is it right here. Walter Walker is on a 4-fight KO streak, but an 11-fight win streak, and Brzezinski has a 3-fight loss streak and a no contest before that 3-fight loss streak. So yep, this is it. Walter Walker by second round KO. Watch Lucas go in there and shock the world. Next up is Ignacio Bahamondes and Christos Giagos, and I want to pay attention to those odds down there because my goodness, it should not be that big of a distance between them. Now I will say yes, Christos Giagos has lost a lot more than he's won, but when you go and look at the quality of opponent, it changes your perspective a little bit. Giagos has fought Charles Oliveira, Arman Sarukian, Daniel Zellhuber, and Thiago Moises. I also want to point out that Ignacio Bahamondes has not finished an opponent in round 1 since his Lux fight days. You don't even know what organization that is. That's completely new to you, and I know it is. And Giagos in his most recent fight against Zellhuber hurt him despite him being at a significant height and reach disadvantage. I have Giagos winning this fight, and I have him by first round KO. Next up is Morgan Charrier versus Chepe Mariscal, and this fight is gonna be very hard to predict actually, which is why I do agree with these odds. This should be a pick'em fight. The thing that makes this even harder to predict is the fact that they're both pretty early in their career, with one of them only having 2 fights and the other one only having 1, which means for Charrier, the guy who's only had 1 fight in the UFC, I have not seen his full skill set at a UFC level, so that makes it pretty hard to predict. So for my pick, I'm actually going to go with Chepe Mariscal, and I'm going to go by a decision because I think he can out-tough anything Charrier throws at him. He's definitely going to return with his own shots. He can make it scrappy. He could test the clinch of Charrier. From what I've heard, Charrier is good on the ground, but I'll believe it when I see it, you understand me? So I'm going to go with Mariscal, and I'm going to go by a decision win. Next up, we have Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson, and I understand why the odds are kind of wonky with this one because Alexander is one of those fighters who starts off pretty fast and then quickly declines, and Damon Jackson is kind of the same. Although the odds are in Alexander Hernandez's favor, I can see Damon Jackson actually winning this fight, so I'm actually going to go with him by decision. Last but not least, we have the rematch, Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis, and I do think this fight will go the exact opposite of what the last fight went. Brendan Allen is on quite a resurgence. He looks a lot better than he used to. I don't know what happened. I don't know what it was. But I will say this, Chris Curtis definitely still has the advantage in the stand-up. But if Brendan Allen is able to take it to the ground, he should win this. That's why I'm going to go with him by a second round submission. That's all she wrote. I just hope I do good this time around. Last time was not that good. But the time before it was aight.